Hello, welcome to another dRonin setup video. Today we're going to tackle Autotune, one of the very exciting features of dRonin. And again, I'm using GCS in the basic configuration. And what we're going to do is make sure that we have a few basic things set up. At this point, you should have gone through initial setup and have your inputs, outputs, vehicle, and hardware all set up for what you're flying. And you could at this point go outside and fly, hopefully. So we're going to go to Configuration, Input, Flight Mode Switch Settings, and make sure that we have Autotune on one of our settings. In my case, I have it set to Leveling, Autotune, Leveling, so either direction from Autotune you can get into the safety of leveling mode. Even if you're a good pilot and you fly acro exclusively, you're going to want to pop through leveling before going to Autotune, because Autotune runs in leveling mode. If your quad is not able to fly in leveling mode, you're not going to have a lot of luck with Autotune. So it's important, even if you don't plan on using leveling as a flight mode normally, that you try it before you go into Autotune. And if something's wrong, you work it out in leveling mode before you move on to Autotune. In this case, our flight modes look good, so we're going to go to Stabilization. And for Autotune, you always want to go from an undertuned state. Usually the defaults will work. Sometimes you'll have to turn your P back a bit, or maybe even your I back a bit on your inner loop here for some setups. This I know is going to work on defaults. Most will, so I'm just going to hit default, default, behind the video, default, and hit save. And I'm going to, just to be sure, go ahead and do this on the advanced and the miscellaneous page. Some of these settings, it's okay if they aren't at default for this procedure, but I want to make extra sure I'm at defaults. Next, we're going to go over to the Autotune tab and make sure that Enable Autotune module is checked. If we've done so, we should have green all the way across our status. If we come to flight data, we can see it a little better. Move my video up here. Everything's green, and at this point, we're pretty much ready to go fly. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. We're going to go outside. We're going to give this a little flight in Autotune mode. And then we'll come back and we will see what happens after we've done the test flight. Okay, time to actually perform an Autotune in the air. You'll probably notice I'm cheating and I've switched quads. I was going to use the little 230, but unfortunately I broke a motor on it earlier this week. I thought I had fixed that, but apparently it wasn't as fixed as I thought it was. So we're going to use the Nighthawk 280 here. And we're going to do an Autotune. So I'm going to go ahead and arm and take off in leveling. And we're flying nice and leveling. A little bit of drift, but nothing I can't handle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of altitude. Don't need a whole bunch, just enough. And I'm going to switch my mode into Autotune. And now we're going to see it start to wiggle and jiggle. And you are now going to spend the next 60 seconds basically just letting it wiggle and jiggle without hitting anything. Calm air is best for this. You're more than welcome to use your sticks to control it during this process. Though in general, the less that you do, usually the better it'll be. It's a good idea to stay high enough that you're not in any kind of ground effect. And basically you just want to let it hover and jiggle. I am adjusting my throttle a bit here to try and find a happy medium, which is a little harder than it seems when you're jiggling like that. But for the most part, this is almost hands-off. I'm giving very, very minor inputs. I believe we're getting close here. There we go. Now what we're going to do is come over here and land and disarm, switch back out of leveling mode, and as long as you disarmed, you are now safe to disconnect your battery, and we'll go inside, connect back up, and we'll get our Autotune out, and we'll see how it did. Hey, we're back from running our Autotune outside. The quad has changed. As I explained outside, the one I was originally using, my little 230, I thought was all set to fly again. Unfortunately, it turned out that this motor here has had better days. I thought I'd fixed it. Turns out my fix didn't fix enough. So, the only downside of this guy is it's a NAS 32 board, so some things don't work quite as smoothly, but for Autotune it's good enough. We'll plug in. One thing that doesn't work as smoothly is it's not auto-detected. I have to select it and connect. And it connects, and hey, will you look at that? It automatically knows we've got a new Autotune since we last connected. Everything looks good, so let's proceed. We'll hit next, and it's going to give us, let me move this a little bit so it's out of the way of my video there. It's going to give us the results that we got back. I got a tau of 25 milliseconds, which is pretty respectable for a nice out of the almost ready to fly setup like this. My gains are right around 9, which is not too bad there. We're looking like a pretty good tune. So basically, just so you know, gains are how strong the quad can correct itself, and tau is the time between when the flight controller says, hey motor, do this, and when the gyro says, hey, the motor just did what you told it to. So the lower the tau, the more responsive and controllable you're going to be. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it's a pretty good indication of how good your setup is. It's not an indication of how good your tune is. It's an indication of how good your overall setup is. Higher gains, lower tau is going to be a more responsive, tighter controlled system. So there's some information down here that kind of wraps up what I said and gives some hints as to things that can help, like running comp PWM or damped light. I'm already on one shot with damped light on here. So we're going to go next. On this page, it gives us the option to adjust the damping and sensitivity. You can hover over these and get a tooltip that explains them better. For example, your damping. Higher values of damping help prevent oscillations and make the quad fly smoother at the expense of slightly slower response. 1.1 is indeed a good starting point. If you want something a little smoother, or if you're getting some oscillations, you can turn that up a bit. If you feel you're a little undertuned and you want things to be a little tighter, you can try turning it down. It's a little riskier, but you can try it. Sensitivity, on the other hand, affects how much the quadcopter responds to both signal and noise from the sensors. 1% is the default. If you want snappier flight, you may want to increase this slightly. If you want things a little smoother, you might drop it down again, but again, the default is pretty good here usually. You also have an option here to select yaw. Yaw is still experimental. Usually it does pretty good on it, most of the setups I've tried, so I'm going to go ahead and enable it. Also optional and experimental is the outer loop figures. I'm going to go ahead and enable that. That's the tuning used for your outer loop, your leveling, auto, oh, that's my transmitter making noise at me. I thought that was my flight controller. Sorry about that. Yeah, your outer KI tuning, which is going to control how your auto level modes work. So I'm going to go ahead and enable it. I'm going to click next, and notice in big red buttons here, Autotune doesn't change rates. PIDs are not rates. We're going to do rates next. But important here is to share your tune. It really does help to share your information. If you have any problems, having your tune in the database will make it easier for people to help you. It also can track them over time so you can see how changes to your vehicle affect its tune, and it helps the developers develop newer and better auto-tune techniques. So this is my 280. This is Emax 2204 2300 kV motors. These are Emax 12 amp ESCs. I don't remember the weight offhand. I'm on 3 cells, and these are 6045 King Kong props I'm running. Autotune demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and share it. Okay, we've now applied our tune. We can now come back to our configuration and go to our input flight mode, and I'm going to go ahead and set up leveling, followed by acro, followed by You know, I don't really use more than acro and leveling. So I could go ahead and throw horizon in, or I could throw in weak leveling. I don't see weak leveling. That may have to be set up as a stabilized bank. So we'll go, oops, not virtual bar. I want weak leveling. So I'm setting stabilized 1, and then I'm using the stabilized 1 settings down here to define what stabilized 1 is going to do. I'm going to keep yaw at rate, but I'll have weak leveling for roll and pitch on that third position. Save that, and we will also come over here, and I'm going to give you a quick look at rates. We're going to go to Stabilization, Basic, and we're going to move this out of the way. And this top box is your rates. This is what controls how many times you can flip in a second, how quick your quad is in the air. One thing that's related here you might want to check is go to your Hardware tab and check your gyro range. The higher your gyro range, the more you'll be able to get. This is probably pushing it 2000 on the NAS32, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. How high your rates will be able to go. So I'm going to link pitch and yaw, so I'm affecting all three at once, and you can see your curve over here. You have three numbers that go into setting this. Basically, what you see down here, this expo rate, is the old style method of setting your expo, 35%, and 3 for the exponent was the default from before. Now, this linear transition lets you change that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set what we want for our full stick rate. When you're really jamming the sticks, how much rotation do you want? And this is measured in degrees per second. I like fairly high rates, but I'm going to stick at 600 for now just because I'm demonstrating. I personally like to fly 800, 900 rate, but 600 is a little safer to step up to. For linear transition, well, no, I'm going to skip that for a second. We're going to come down to center slope. And center slope is basically your rates at the beginning of your stick movement. And I'm going to actually drop that a little lower down to 150 for this demonstration. And you'll notice these inputs give me the equivalent of 75% expo rate using the old style setup, which is not bad. But what I really like is this linear transition. We can bump that up to say 32, and you notice how our curve shifts. Effectively, that's giving us a longer center slope for a smoother center section while still being able to hit high rates for some real fun. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And at this point, I'm ready to go test fly this and see how the tune and the rates do. So let's go ahead and disconnect. And I'm going to go outside and I'll bring you guys with me and we'll see how that tune does. Okay. Let's go ahead and demonstrate the results of our Autotune. I'm going to go ahead and power up. This is purely Autotune settings from that Autotune you just watched, with the added setting of the higher rate that I set. So I'm going to arm. I'm in leveling mode to start here. And we look nice and stable and very responsive. I'm going to pop into acro mode, which I prefer. You can see it's holding nice, but it's still good and responsive here. With those higher rates, if I get a little altitude, I can easily flip. Again, it's not quite as high of a rate as I usually fly with. And oops, forgot I don't have hang time enabled yet. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm used to flying with slightly higher rates than this, but it is flyable. And this tune feels really good. It's nice and locked in. Might be just a hair wobble there, so I might want to turn down the damping a bit, but I don't know. I'd have to do an onboard video to be sure, or look at some logs, but it looks pretty darn good and it feels just fine to me. So that's the basics there. That's how you go ahead and set up your Autotune, run your Autotune, increase your rates, and you're ready to go fly. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying this whole series. There's lots more to come. And I hope you're enjoying flying Dronin. If you have any questions, as usual, post them down below. Give me the thumbs up and a subscription if you like this. And if you have any ideas on other things I should cover, please let me know. I'm open to suggestions. Thanks. Have fun.